10, 5. Good morning, and thank you for attending Police Headquarters. My name is Constable Carolyn DeClute, and I'm here today to introduce Detective Sergeant Daniel Sabadics of 53 Division, as well as Director of External Communications, Steve Key of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. They will address vehicle thefts in Toronto.
Thank you, Carolyn. On Tuesday this week, the Insurance Bureau of Canada released its annual list of Canada's most frequently stolen vehicles and Ontario's most stolen vehicles. They noted a 15% increase in stolen autos. At 53 Division, which is part of Central District, we've noticed year to date a 92% increase in stolen autos. It's becoming pandemic in our city. City itself is experiencing a 29% increase in the theft of autos. What that boils down to is about 1,000 more stolen autos this year, year to date, than last year. So up from 3,200 to 4,200. In breaking them down by vehicle makes, we see that the top 10 overall, spikes for Honda, Toyota, very popular to be stolen across Toronto. However, in Central District and in North Central District, so just to give you a bearing of what that encompasses, south to Bloor, north to Steeles, the Don River, and then over to Bathurst. That encompasses the two districts, Central District, North Central District. We found there was an increase in luxury autos being taken. Specifically, we had investigations indicating that they were electronic override thefts. So in essence, two types. One, relay thefts, which you may be familiar with, where your fob or your key, the fob itself is cloned. Car is entered and driven away with a newly programmed fob. Another electronic override method that's being used is accessing the vehicle's OBD, or onboard diagnostic port, in the car. Break into the car, access that electronic port, which is usually for service, and computer software easily available on the internet nowadays. A new fob or a new key is programmed and recognized, and the car is stolen. So essentially that's what I'm referring to today, electronic override theft. We're finding that prevalent with the luxury automobiles. These increases we found as well mirrored in the GTA. So York, Halton, and Peel are having the same year-to-date increases with luxury automobiles. When we checked with Durham, they're just starting to see increases in that area as well. Next slide, please. We ended up taking a look at the top 10 luxury automobiles stolen. As you can see, there's a couple spikes. We found that the luxury autos that were driving these stats or these numbers up were top 4, Lexus, Toyota, Mercedes, and Land Rover. In Central District, we had a 240% increase year to date from last year. In North Central District, which is just north of us, so Lawrence to Steeles, 45% increase. And across Toronto, for those 4 makes, a 90% increase. So what we're looking at today, we have investigations ongoing with different jurisdictions into these thefts, but we want to make the public aware how to best deter these electronic override thefts. And we found through investigation, as well as working with our partners in manufacturing, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, is to target harden. So to try to mechanically secure our vehicles as best we can to protect against the electronic override. Currently, the IBC has released certain recommendations alongside Lock It or Lose It campaign. Don't leave your car keys in the car. Don't leave your vehicle running. Try to park in a well-lit space. Park in a garage if you can. All very good, but we have a few more that we want to add that we have found will likely assist in deterring the theft of the car. Why is it important? Every single person, no matter what age or demographic, when you go out in the morning You have your plan for the day. You have your errands. You might have some personal property in your vehicle. You step out and the car's not there. That now creates complete turmoil. You have to replace whatever you have to replace. Personal identification, perhaps your credit cards are there. You have to go through the vehicle as well, get that exchanged, a rental. How can you deter that, and what would you pay for it? We found a lot of our mechanical deterrents range from $80 to $200. Very simple fixes that can help deter it. Next slide. One example, kind of old school, steering wheel club. It can be bypassed, but it takes effort. You need a hacksaw. We found usually thieves will follow the path of least resistance, almost similar to somebody wants to break into a home. That one has bars on the windows, a wall around it, it's gated, it's got guard dogs. That one has none of that. The thief will naturally go to the path of least resistance. So again, a club, next one. Wheel boot chalk, or chalk. Wheel boots used to be used by municipalities when unpaid fines were registered. They actually sell these, $80 to $150. Again, this is for around your residence. I say this because we found most of these electronic overrides of luxury automobiles occur at the home, and they occur overnight, 2, 3 in the morning, but overnight. So this is if you're in your driveway, for example. It may be inconvenient, but it locks the vehicle mechanically. Next slide, please. As I described one of the electronic override formats as accessing the OBD, or the onboard diagnostic, they currently sell for about $80, $100, OBD, or onboard diagnostic port locks, 2 different variations. It's locked, and now it cannot be accessed to reprogram a key. Also, they come with labels that can be put on the door so that at least you don't suffer damage to your door to get in for the thieves to discover that you have an OBD lock. Next slide, please. Aftermarket ignition or fuel cell kill switch. All this does, it's electronic override with a button or buttons wherever you want in your car. For example, an extra rear defrost button, whatever is comfortable or convenient to you, that shuts off the ignition. It bypasses the key. Only if you activate that button will your key work. So it's aftermarket. Why aftermarket is important, or dealer installed? Anything the manufacturer puts in, it's standardized. So thieves can figure out what is where and try to bypass it. Anything aftermarket or dealer installed, it's unique to the customer, it's unique to the installer, so it's a little more confusing. Next slide, please. Something relatively new, intelligent RFID car immobilizer. These are more expensive options, $500 to $700, dealer installed or aftermarket installed. Radio frequency interrupter is what it is. Quite simply, the vehicle, the ignition system and the fuel system have a computer. There's a unit installed in the vehicle, and it emits a pulse, a frequency. You see this little object, it's like a fob like you would to enter your gym. It's passive. If that fob is not present when you approach your vehicle with your key, the vehicle will not start. The ignition or the fuel will not engage. So that fob, or that little key chain piece, should be on your house keys. If it's on your house keys and you have your car keys, both present, it reads the PIN, it allows you to access it. So if a fob were copied, car couldn't get stolen. If they got into the car and overrode it and created a new fob, it still couldn't get stolen. Next, please. In what I had just mentioned earlier about aftermarket dealership or aftermarket installation of an alarm system, all vehicles come with an alarm system nowadays pretty well, but they're standardized to the make, so they're easy to figure out, and the thieves can then bypass them. I shouldn't say easy to figure out, but they can be figured out. Aftermarket, unique to the installer. So again, that trips, the thief doesn't really want to stay around with an audible alarm going off. They're thinking they could bypass it, they didn't, and they'll move on. Next slide. You may have heard of Faraday or radio frequency interrupter bags or boxes. All this does is once you put the fob in the bag, it protects it from sending out any radio frequency to be copied or to be cloned. It's one of the options that you have. Next slide, please. I use this one. I love it. If you have a garage and you can clear it of clutter, park it in a garage, out of sight, out of mind. Also, we found through investigations, most vehicle makes and models have unique deterrents that are available to you through the dealership, through the manufacturer, not clearly stated in the manual at times. For example, the fob you have. A lot of manufacturers have set a series of button pressing protocols where you can disable the frequency emission. So when you're done with the car for the evening, you walk in, press a couple buttons in a series, set it aside, it's not emitting any frequency to be cloned. As soon as you go to the car, press any button, it reactivates. So at least, not unlike a Faraday bag, it's blocking the radio frequency. Again, what I recommend to owners of all vehicles, this applies to all makes, these deterrents, not just luxury autos, is to call the manufacturer, see what kind of deterrents they may have, what options they may have, what they have available. And the overall picture here is to try to target harden. We're just trying to make it more difficult. And we find that there is success with that when we do that with businesses, with homes, with crime prevention in that aspect. So with cars, especially with the electronic overrides, we find that we have success. We had one this week where one of the intelligent RFIDs was installed in the vehicle because this was a replacement for a previously stolen vehicle. I think the thieves were at it for about 3 hours on video, unsuccessful. They couldn't bypass the shutoff for the ignition or the fuel. So again, we are finding success, but if we don't spread the word out to the public and let them know what is available, we won't get what we want. And that's what we want is prevention. We want a proactive measure. Anybody have any questions?
There seems to be a big change in the way this crime is being done. This seems more sophisticated than your average take a crowbar, smash a window thief that we used to hear about, long ago. Is it becoming harder for police to track down these crimes and track these folks, or is it that they are so sophisticated that they're doing far more advanced things?
I don't understand your question.
Sorry, I lost my question there. Are these crimes becoming more sophisticated that it's harder for you guys to keep up with them and harder for the public to keep up for them?
Yes, in as much as they are becoming more sophisticated, the criminals are becoming more sophisticated. This electronic technology, software, it's becoming more sophisticated in their approach. However, as far as us in investigating and apprehending, no, we're not finding that to be an issue. However, what we're finding is the whole reason for this press conference is it's now that they've become more sophisticated and they have that knowledge, without the public and the owners knowing what is happening, that's deterring us. So it's not our investigation so much, it's the fact that they're being very successful only because it's not common knowledge of how can I help to deter this. As you said, a lot of times in the old days, there'd be a flatbed pickup truck come pick up the car and it's gone. Hot wiring, whatever the case. We're not seeing tow trucks or flatbeds used in a lot of these. It's electronic override. Like there's a key or a replacement fob created and off it goes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's like two questions, I think.
You mentioned a 3-hour attempt. That's got to be at the extreme end of somebody really trying. But for the most part, how much time will a thief attempt to try to steal a car? For example, the driveway, the electronic overrides and stuff. How much time do you think it's going to take before they give up?
I can't speak to when they would give up, but I could say I know the IBC released their numbers and on Tuesday, and that's 60 seconds and gone is a good ballpark for what their time frame is. It could be 60 seconds up to 15 minutes. We find that is the norm. So a minute to 15 minutes. It's up to the individual thief whether they want to persist. This was unique that they were there for 3 hours. Like they were waiting for the sun to come up.
So vis-a-vis something like the club, which is pretty old school stuff, based on what you're saying, what's a thief likely to do when they see that on the Land Rover or the Mercedes or the high-end vehicle? They see that, then what?
Well, they generally come prepared. So they'll come prepared for a relay theft with a laptop and a handheld. For an override, they'll come prepared with certain small hand tools and then a reprogrammer. they're not coming prepared generally, we find, with grinders or hacksaws, and that's what you need for a club. And old school with the club, that's how the override was achieved. Take them about, whatever it was, 5 to 7 minutes, let's say, to cut through. So either you have the sound of an electric grinder or you're cutting through with a hacksaw. So it's just a deterrent. It makes it harder. It's more resistance. So that path of least resistance, again, because of the different availability of these vehicles, why bother with one that has a club when I can go to one that doesn't?
Lastly, you interview a lot of victims of auto theft, obviously. Why do so many victims not do any of these things? Whether it's the club or it's the overrides or people put expensive stuff. What's the reason that people are lackadaisical when it comes to this?
I wouldn't say lackadaisical. I think they're just confident in the technology that's now available. And unfortunately, that technology is almost like an Achilles heel. As a customer, you're spending a good amount of money for a product that you feel confident with, has alarm systems built in, it has all kind of overrides built in, and you're confident that that, in fact, is secure, much more so than in years gone by. No criticism of the manufacturers, but what it is, as I said earlier, because they're standardized across the make and model, and the criminals are becoming more sophisticated, it can be figured out and it can be breached. And that's the purpose, again, of this press conference, is to share the knowledge of we have to override what you may falsely be confident in thinking is the case, because the numbers speak for themselves. The increases are right across the board, including across the province.
How long does it take, or are a lot of these vehicles recovered, or really not recovered? And how long before you can say, well, forget, you'll never get your car back?
Usually a recovery, if we make a recovery, it's relatively soon. I ballpark it maybe in the first couple days, let's say. But we're not making a lot of recoveries, which leads us to the assumption of, not unlike what the IBC came out with on Tuesday, that they're going overseas.
I remember many years ago when low jack type devices were being put in all these vehicles, or into many vehicles at high end, and so they could be tracked, they could be satellite traced. Why are those technologies not more commonly used in vehicles? Because those will pinpoint where the vehicle has been taken to.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak to that. All I know is that they are available. Unfortunately, I believe most manufacturers offer them as an option. And so, again, because you have a sense of security with this, the security of your make and model that you've purchased, you don't need to buy the extra GPS tracking, low jack, whatever the case is. It's available, but you have to pay for it, and it has to be activated. It's just not across the board activated. And you have to understand, too, that's an investigative reactive tool. I'm focusing on the proactive. Let's try not to get it stolen in the first place.
So how close do these thieves have to be to your vehicle in order to find out that combination? Like, would your home surveillance system be able to detect that there's activity outside?
Yeah, I think there was a video or there was a diagram that went out a week or two ago. In order for a relay override, a laptop somewhere really close to your front door. And then the other ones are the OBD, or the onboard diagnostic, where they have to physically get into the car and plug into your car. So again, there they don't have to go near your house, they go right to the car. So there's two types. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Steve Key. I'm Director of External Communications with IBC, and I'm really pleased that Toronto Police are raising awareness about some of these issues. And I just want to speak, I think, for the common person that I think of myself. I get up in the morning, my keys are by the front door. I often, in cold weather, will turn on the vehicle remotely, wait for it to warm up, because I like creature comforts. I want to get into a warm vehicle. I see people on a daily basis will stop at coffee shops or gas stations and leave vehicles running. So for the most part, while there are sophisticated tools, and we acknowledge that that is a growing trend, often these are thefts by opportunity. And by opportunity, we're making things easy. So if what police are suggesting, simple tool like the club, or some of these overrides can certainly help us in the fight against auto theft. This week we released our top 10 stolen vehicle list, different lists across the country. Nationally, most of the vehicles being stolen are the Ford F-Series trucks. They're popular items. But in Ontario, you tend to have some of the higher-end SUVs that are being usually in some crime-based activity, and many of them are shipped out of the country, hence not finding something immediately. It's probably in a container and going into some of the overseas markets. I think we can simply say, if we take that extra vigilance and don't become that creature of habit, that we can prevent some of these things from happening. Perhaps not leaving that key at the front door, that if there is an opportunity for some sort of electronic copying, that it's not within range. Maybe you need to install, if you're very concerned about this, security systems. Park your vehicle in the garage. But at this time of year in particular, everyone's focus just seems to be a little bit off. So whether we're running around shopping for the holidays or getting ready to go away on vacation, we're almost telegraphing to thieves and making it easy for them. So I think anything that we can do, park in well-lit areas, put your vehicle in the garage, make sure it's locked. I've had my vehicle broken into, well, I call it broken into 3 times in a small community northeast of Toronto. I've probably left it open. Change in the vehicle, jacket, computer bag, anything like that. It's that theft of opportunity that I think will stop a lot of this. If thieves have the technology and they really want to steal a vehicle, then perhaps a simple investment like the club or some of these other measures that police are suggesting will just give them that extra time that'll make them move somewhere else and not target your vehicle. Anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Just re-asking what I was asking the detective, which is, why are there not better technologies that are either insisted on or where there are incentives provided by the insurance company, like the tracking devices, like some of these things? You know, if somebody had a financial incentive on their insurance, for example, to install or to do certain things, they might do it. Otherwise, they figure, hey, it's the insurance company's problem, I'll pay my deductible, etc. So speak to whether the insurance industry has some role to play in trying to incentivize consumers to be able to protect their vehicles more.
I think we look at a number of factors when it is setting a premium, and often when people are buying an insurance policy, especially in a market like Ontario, when it is expensive, they're looking at getting the best rate they can possibly get. I know that on some home insurance policies that some companies will offer deductions for home security systems. If you take extra steps on your vehicle, I would have that conversation with the insurance rep to see if there's any potential discount. But there's been nothing come down from the industry to say, if you do X, it'll result in Y.
Even though these are pretty high value losses, you got $100,000 in many of these Mercedes.
Some of these, in fact, if you look at the top 10 list, and we did a quick calculation, and that list alone was just about $10 million in losses on just the top 10 list.
Can you speak as well to the detective's point about the significant increase in number over the last year? You're like 200 and some percent in some zones and some of these. But why do you guys think that the high-end market is so valuable right now in the last year? What's changed?
Well, prior to 2015, auto theft across the country had been on the decline. And we've seen it go up in recent cases. And again, you may have more sophisticated crime rings that are looking to target specific vehicles and get them out of the country. In other cases, they are thefts of opportunity, depending on the economy and where people are they're standing in life and whether they think there's a quick way to make a buck. The vehicles that we have are sophisticated. They're more expensive to replace. They're more expensive to repair. And we also live our lives in the vehicle. So there's information like your ownership and your pink slip that often people keep in their vehicles, and we always suggest that you don't do that because there's also an increase over the last 5 years or so in identity theft. And again, why are we don't want to make it easy for anyone.
Do you think manufacturers are maybe should be taking a larger responsibility in making sure their vehicles are?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the manufacturer, but I can speak for.
Well, have you had any conversations? Obviously,
No, we have not had conversation with the manufacturers, but our concern at this point is raising public awareness and making sure that we take the steps we can to be safe and protect what we have.
Following up on what you were saying, though, if I'm in the city of Toronto and I own one of the vehicles that is a target vehicle, will I be paying a higher insurance premium, or vice versa? Should I be paying a reduced premium if I don't own one of those vehicles that's on that target list?
Vehicles are rated based on repair costs, frequency of them potentially being stolen, and it all goes into the setting of a rate. The age of the driver, the driver's record